yesterday I changed the heater core because I think that heater core is half plugged at the bottom, according to what other guys say about it. There was no heat coming out on the driver's side since we bought this car, so a couple of years in the wintertime it was a little chilly over there. So I changed that, and it just basically slides into this big heater apparatus here, and you undo the hoses on the other side in the engine bay, and these things actually swivel right here so that you can put them together okay. And then the other thing is, just to check before we put this all together, is that all of these little motors here that are opening and closing flaps to send air here, there, and everywhere, to make sure that those are all working, because it's a lot easier to fix them now than it is once you get everything together. I don't like climbing under the dash, you know, it's just so uncomfortable. So I know this whole thing looks like mayhem, but it's not. It's very organized. And in fact, all of this wiring, well, I've had to make a few changes. I burnt this bunch here by welding from underneath and didn't know they were there. So I repaired all those. And then the ABS brakes, I had to cut those, so I put little plugs on those so that we'll run those through the floorboards later, and the same on this side, plus the gas fuel sender and fuel tank and all that kind of stuff. So that's all done, and then I've regrounded some of these wires, because if you've got wiring problems, 90% it's going to be the ground. So with all of that, the idea is to be able to check this. I've got it all, so I can just plug it in and basically turn it on, and you've got power. And so this thing would actually start up if I cranked it over. But it would kind of stink in here. So yeah, so that's kind of the fun part of doing it like this, because now you've got everything underneath, you know, and mechanically is all ready to go. So once I get the 49 body parked on top of the 06 chassis, it's going to be a matter of hooking up and cleaning up. I don't mean besides paint and body, you know, which is a huge job. But otherwise, at this point, you think I'm actually quite a ways ahead of a typical project. I've got no chassis work to do. All we're going to do is freshen the engine up a little bit with a few gaskets, and but it's ready to go. I drove it in here and it would drive out. And so, you know, even the brakes is all hooked up. Nothing's been touched. The radiator, I'm going to have to bleed that again just because of that heater core. But otherwise, yeah, everything's just the way it was. So you can see that we put that Chev body on here, hook everything up, clean it up, stick the seats in. The seats will just stick right in, right? They just bolt right in. Turn the key and away you go. Well, there's a couple more things that have got to be done as well. One of the things here is the defrosters, right? The defroster air comes out of this top here, and it used to come out of this thing, and it would go spread across the car and out little holes everywhere. So I'm going to build a little plenum thing there, and it'll have 4 2-inch pipes coming out of it, and I'll just run some heater hose, you know, good old Dorman heater hose. And then up in here in the car, there's the original defroster holes, and I'm going to cut some more over on this side so that they'll actually clean the window right here on the side. So there's the, I don't know what you call these things, the defroster plenum thing, right? That screws up under the window. So I'm going to make 2 more that are just a bit shorter, and so I'll have lots of defrosters on the front. And the reason I'm doing that is because my 42 Chev, I just have the stock defrosters in there, and the corners of the windshield and the side windows are always fogging up icing up in Canadian weather. Well, today, one of those tricky things that I've been waking up at night over for, I don't know, months now. And that's all the end of the dash stuff, okay? Now, we've dealt with the wiper blades already and the windshield wipers, and pretty happy with the way those turned out. And now we're going to talk about the heating system. And again, I've left the entire HVAC system, right, in the Cadillac, in the car. It's going to be great to drive with clear windows. Well, you don't know till you try it, right? We'll see. I mean, yeah, it's going to work. It's got to work. There's no doubt about it. The blower in the Cadillac and the whole heating system in the Cadillac is probably 3 times, as much efficiency and power as the original 49 Chev one, because you can, well, I don't know, maybe you can't, but I can remember driving these kind of things in the winter, or at least riding in them as a kid. And we had to put those frost shields on the windows. And it was just a piece of plastic that was held out by a little rubber gasket. And you would stick that on a window and it'd make 2 layers, like a layer of kind of insulated layer. So it wouldn't frost up in that area. So you could see the rear view mirrors and things like that. And yeah, back in the day, we plastered those things all over the vehicles. They were probably, 75 cents each. So let's get at it. We'll cut some steel, measure some steel, cut some steel, bend some steel, weld some steel, and make that plenum that goes on top of this HVAC system, and be able to run the defroster tubes up to the 4 defrosters. And that'll be another job to tick off. I should put a big board up on the wall with squares on it and a big red tick marks in the squares. But there's no space on any of the walls because they're all full of tools hanging there. All right, the plan. Here's the kind of the old plenum plastic thing that came off the top of that heater system. And so basically what we have to do is copy this perimeter here and bring it up a bit. And then we are going to mount these 2-inch outside diameter outputs, kind of like a manifold. There'll be 4 of them on here to facilitate this Dorman stuff. Okay, so it fits on there, 2-inch OD, and it's hard to get on, but it always is, but it's worth it. It'll stay on. Okay, so we're going to have 4 defrosters coming off that manifold like this, and then 4 defrosters up underneath the window. So this is the stock one that comes with the car. And then we're actually going to take 2 more of these, and what we'll do is we'll crush them flat so that they're the same width as this, right? They'll not be quite as wide, and these will make the outer corner defrosters. And then we'll cut a piece out from the top of the dash, the front of that dash, where just underneath the windshield, and screw these up in there. And we'll have our corner defrosters. All right, so we're starting with a straight piece of metal right here. And we want to come up. Now this thing here has quite a dish in it, and it comes up quite high. This is actually the level of the inside of the dash of the Cadillac, so it would stand upright like this. We've got a lot more room in there. The old Chevy dash is going to be up like about this. But we don't need to make it too high. But let's make it, I don't know, 3 inches high. Let's give it another 3/4 then for the overlap. And then 3 inches. So we'll wrap this right around. And then we need to have 2 1/4, so 1 1/8 extra to weld to, because we'll bend it over the top, put a seam down the middle, which won't be much of a seam because there'll be 4 outlets interrupting it and take up most of the room. But so basically this then is where we're going to cut it. this hunk of steel into a perfectly sized rectangle with slightly rounded corners so that it fits on the Cadillac heater box.
Quite. That'll work. How's it looking? Right, 4 nice round holes, 4 nice round pegs to go in round holes, except that the pegs are a little bit wide there. So what I'm going to do is squash these and make them oval shaped, and then weld them in there, and then I'll grind out a little bit more so I get full flow. Okay, I think that looks pretty good.
Now we'll take 4 more of these little exhaust fittings and make a nice long oval shaped mouth. Cut some brackets to weld to the ends of it that will have screw holes that'll take the screws that hold the whole assembly underneath the dash in the proper place. Once we get holes cut in the dash. So I'm kind of following the pattern of the original ones. Yeah, it worked in 1949, so it should probably work now. Just need a couple little tabs here to put the screw holes in to hold it up under the dash. And then, yeah, you always got to get the little sharp edges of ground steel off. Tack these on here.
That's some good stuff.
Yep, then GM's gonna start ordering them from me. Cut a hole carefully and gingerly along this little channel that's between the windshield mount and the dash, or the cowl and the dash, and then screw those up in there. And should be full force defrost air in wintertime.
And one more thing, you know, you work on things like defrosters. Right now outside it's like over 30 degrees Celsius, you know, from Canada. And hot, and we're just looking for a cool place to sit. I'm sitting in my basement right now, and with a fake picture behind me. But you know, there's things that we got to take care of that are seasonal, and they're not for this season. You got to prepare these things, because I want to have a nice cozy car when we hit minus 30 and be comfortable. And that's not going to happen unless I take care of this business now, things like defrosters and heaters and all of that kind of stuff. And this car actually has heated seats as well, of course. It's a Cadillac, right? And my wife loves the heated seats. And so the things that we're going to be able to, you know, the buttons that we're going to be able to push in the future, like turn on the heated seat. I catch my wife doing this all the time. The air conditioner blasting in front of her and the heated seat on behind her. It's the best of both worlds, you know? And you can just get things set the way that it's going to be the most comfortable for you, the most wonderful, and look the best on you, you know? And you want your car project to look good on you when you're done. And that happens because we take care of that kind of business right now that doesn't really matter right now, but we can see into the future that it is really going to matter. And it's the same thing with our lives, you know. We've got to take care of business, got to take care of the things that are going to matter in the future, so that when we get into the future, the foundations are laid, right? And you're not scrambling, you're not missing it. I mean, can you imagine it hits minus 30 and we're going to go to the store or go see somebody or whatever, and you jump in the car and there's no defrosters. You'd be kicking yourself, right? So thinking ahead and planning ahead and doing the hard work now. And I like that principle that, you know, people looking at this project, and I talk to people all the time about it, and they're like, what? Why would you put a 49 Chev onto a Cadillac CTS? And of course, the answer is for the outcome, but the question really is, why would you go to all that crazy work? Why don't you just drive the Cadillac? It was perfectly fine, you know? Yeah, but I'm thinking into the future, because I want this car to look good on me and my wife, you know, in our old age as we're cruising down the highway at 120 kilometers an hour with the heater going or the air conditioner going or whatever season that we're in. So I want to encourage you today, take care of business now that's going to make the difference in the future, things that you can't actually go back later and fix, right? So, but you can fix it now. You can do it now. You can lay the right foundations now. You know, you can learn the things that you need to learn now for the future, and learn how to think and how to plan and how to strategize and how to keep your life in order, so that when we get to the future, we have a good foundation to build on. Anyway, thanks so much for joining me today, and look forward to seeing you again next week. So please subscribe, like the video, you know, all that stuff you're supposed to do. But you know, it'd be really cool is if you shared it with a friend that you know who just needs a little bit of, well, I don't know, whatever these videos offer. I'm not even sure why I do this.
Car Cobbler comes to you from the sincere desire that today we learn something new. Keep your shop and your life reasonably tidy. Do some things the hard way, and may all your projects come true.